It was a very cold morning in January 2026. News from North Korea shocked many people. North Korea said that military drones from South Korea had flown over their land. They said this happened more than once. Pyongyang, the capital city of North Korea, released unclear pictures of a drone. It looked simple and old. They claimed their army shot it down. North Korea's state media warned that South Korea would surely be forced to pay a dear price for this bad act. South Korea's new president, a man who had won the election by promising peace, was in a big problem from the start. The South Korean government quickly responded. They said North Korea's claims were not true. Defense officials stated that their military did not operate any drones on those dates. They also said that the drone in North Korea's photos was not a type their army used. This created a big question for everyone. If the South Korean military did not fly this drone, then who was responsible? As days passed, other countries started to ask questions. There was more and more pressure from around the world to find answers. In the South Korean president's office, a young official was checking all the papers about the drone incident. He saw a small, strange thing in the official statement that denied North Korea's claims. One line was covered or blacked out, but he could see some words. It talked about non-state actors. This small part, hidden from view, made the official think that the truth was much more complex and dangerous than anyone knew. 2. The past is not past. Drones flying where they should not is not a new problem. Before the current issue, there was a well-known and bad event in December 2022. 5 North Korean drones crossed into South Korean airspace then. One of these drones flew very close to Seoul, the capital city. South Korea's military tried to shoot them down, but they could not. One of South Korea's own fighter jets crashed during this time, but the pilots were safe. This event showed big weaknesses in South Korea's defenses. The military was not ready to stop small, slow-moving drones. The skies above the border, called the demilitarized zone, have often seen these hidden flights. It has been like a secret battle in the air, going back and forth for a long time. There was an even more difficult incident in October 2024. At that time, the South Korean government before the current one was accused of sending drones over Pyongyang, North Korea's capital. They did not clearly say yes or no to this accusation. The full story behind what truly happened then will be told later. However, this 2024 event was not just another small border fight. It was connected to a very big and secret plan. This plan was so bad that it caused the last president of South Korea to lose his job. And the people who created this dangerous plan might still be active, working in the shadows. A new leader's test. Lee Jae-myung became South Korea's new president in June 2025. He rose from a difficult childhood and poverty to lead the country. His campaign promise was to bring peace, not war. He wanted to change the strong, hawkish ways of the old president and talk with North Korea. But now, in January 2026, North Korea claimed South Korean military drones had flown over their border. This news put President Lee in a very hard spot. He had to stand firm against North Korea's accusations, but also protect his plans for peace and talks.
North Korea had ignored all his offers to talk since he took office. They had shown no interest in his ideas for a peaceful future. President Lee wondered why they were so set on refusing peace. Was this drone story a clever part of a bigger plan from the North? At home, President Lee faced pressure from his political opponents. Many conservatives wanted him to take a very strong stance. They called for hard actions against North Korea. Meanwhile, North Korea continued to speak with angry, strong words. President Lee felt stuck between these two pressures. He knew he needed to find the real truth. He could not make good decisions without all the facts. Desperate for answers, President Lee called his defense chief. He ordered the chief to give him the complete file.
He wanted to see all drone operations from the past 2 years, with nothing taken out. The chief looked worried. He paused for a moment, then spoke with a serious voice. He warned the president, "Sir, some things are better left unknown." 4. The secret plan. President Lee Jae-myung finally received the secret files. He had asked for all reports on drone operations from the last 2 years. His defense chief had warned him, saying some things were better left unknown. But President Lee needed to understand the truth behind the rising tensions with North Korea. What President Lee found in the files was shocking. The documents were about the October 2024 drone flights. North Korea had claimed then that South Korean drones flew over its capital city, Pyongyang. At that time, the previous South Korean government, under President Yoon, had not given clear answers. Now, these classified files revealed the truth. Prosecutors had investigated this incident in detail. They discovered that President Yoon's administration had secretly ordered those drone flights. It was not North Korea acting first. Instead, the South Korean government itself had sent the drones. This was a false flag operation, a secret plan to provoke North Korea. The drones were meant to drop anti-regime propaganda leaflets deep inside North Korean territory. The real goal was to create a big national security crisis. This crisis would give President Yoon a reason to declare martial law in South Korea. Prosecutors found critical evidence, including memos from a senior defense official, No Sang-won. These memos revealed plans to aggravate Kim Jong-un enough to justify martial law. One note even said, "Enemy action must come first," talking about creating a wartime situation. A Democratic Party lawmaker, Kim Byung-ju, a former general, also received information from whistleblowers inside South Korea's Drone Operations Command. They confirmed that these drone flights into North Korean territory did happen during the Yoon administration. The purpose was clearly to provoke a strong military response from the North. This discovery changed everything. It showed that North Korea in the 2024 incident was actually telling the truth. They were not the aggressors then. This made North Korea's current accusations about the January 2026 drone much harder for President Lee to dismiss. The conspiracy that brought down the last president was now clear. But it raised a terrifying question. If a part of the South Korean government was willing to risk war once for political reasons, were they still active, trying to do it again? 5. A different kind of fight. The government's new investigation looked into a different idea. Maybe civilian activist groups were involved. These groups often included North Korean defectors, people who had left North Korea
and now lived in the South. For many years, these activists had sent things across the border into North Korea. They used large balloons to carry propaganda leaflets, USB drives with foreign movies, and even money. Their goal was to share information and hope with people in the North. They believed this was a way to fight the North Korean government's strict rules. The crude drones North Korea showed in its photos matched the type these groups might use. The drones looked simple, like models you could buy in a store. They were not fancy military aircraft. These activist groups often did not have a lot of money, so cheap, ready-made drones would be what they could afford. The drones were painted pale blue, maybe to hide them in the sky. Some people in the government thought this was a possible answer. If activists flew the drone, it would explain why the South Korean military denied it was theirs. It would also explain why the drone looked so simple. However, these activist flights could cause big problems. North Korea saw these actions as a threat and had sometimes warned of strong reactions against South Korean border towns. The South Korean government had even tried to stop these groups before to keep peace on the border. The idea that activists were behind the drone seemed like a simple solution to the mystery. It could ease some of the tension. But was it too simple? Was it a real answer, or just a story to make things look less dangerous? Just as President Lee's government began to consider blaming these civilian groups, a new message arrived. A high-level defector came forward. This man had once been an intelligence officer for North Korea. He gave a serious warning to the government. "You are looking at the wrong drones," he said. "The one they shot down is a trick. The real one was never meant to be seen." 6. North Korea's game. It was time to look at the situation from North Korea's side. Were their drone accusations true? Or were they part of a larger, clever plan? North Korea's actions often seemed like strong anger, but there was usually a smart strategy behind them. North Korea had become good friends with Russia. Russia was giving North Korea money and help for its war. This friendship made North Korea stronger. It also made them feel less alone in the world. This support meant North Korea did not need to talk with South Korea as much. Instead, North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un often ignored President Lee's offers for peace. He seemed to want to speak directly with the United States. Kim Jong-un believed that talking to the United States was more important. He hoped for a meeting with the U.S. President, Donald Trump, just like before. Such a meeting could help North Korea get what it wanted, like an end to sanctions. So North Korea wanted to keep this door open, even while treating South Korea with disrespect.
They saw the drone incident as a way to test South Korea and keep the focus on a possible U.S. meeting. This drone event was not just a small argument. It was a single move in a much bigger game. This game involved many powerful countries: Washington, Beijing, and Moscow. North Korea was trying to play them against each other to get what was best for itself. People all over the world were watching, trying to guess North Korea's next move. Then, North Korea's state media made a shocking statement. They announced that they had found secret information. They said they got it from the memory card of the real drone. They promised to show its secret flight path and what it had been watching. The announcement said this would happen in 48 hours, 2 days from now. 7. Danger on the border.
The 48-hour deadline plunged the Korean peninsula into its worst crisis in many years. Fear spread across the land. North Korea showed its clear anger and readiness. They moved heavy artillery guns, large cannons, to positions very close to the border. These powerful weapons were pointed directly at South Korean territory. In response, South Korea's military acted swiftly. Fighter jets screamed into the sky, scrambling from their bases. They flew fast, a strong sign of defense, ready to protect the nation. The United States, a key ally, also prepared for the worst. Its 28,500 troops stationed in South Korea were placed on the highest alert.
This meant every soldier was ready for immediate action. The demilitarized zone, the thin strip of land dividing north and south, became more dangerous than ever before. This border is known as one of the most heavily armed places on Earth. Soldiers stood face to face, prepared for conflict. The air was thick with silent tension. A single wrong move, a small misunderstanding, could quickly start a war. Millions of people's lives across the peninsula were at great risk. The two nations had been technically at war for over 7 decades, and now the peace was very fragile. The main mystery, who truly flew the drone, was no longer a puzzle. It was a direct fuse threatening to ignite a full-scale war. All the political secrets and quiet worries from before now met in this dangerous moment. The world watched anxiously, wondering if peace would hold. Time was running out fast, with only hours left until North Korea's announced deadline. President Lee Jae-myung felt the immense burden of leadership. The future of his country rested on his decisions. Just then, his special encrypted phone vibrated. He answered it, hearing a voice altered by a modulator. It hid the caller's identity. "Mr. President," the voice warned, "North Korea is not lying about the drone, but its true target was not in the north. It was here, in the south. Mr. President, you are the target." 8. The real battle. President Lee listened closely to the cold voice on his encrypted phone. It was changed by a modulator, hiding the speaker's identity. The anonymous caller claimed to be a trusted officer from South Korea's own drone command. The truth was shocking. The drone North Korea shot down was not theirs. It was not from civilian activists. It was launched by a secret, rogue faction within South Korea's own military. These soldiers were still loyal to the impeached former president, Yoon. They hated President Lee's new peace policy. Their dangerous plan was simple. They wanted to create a crisis. They flew a crude drone close to the highly militarized border, the demilitarized zone, hoping North Korea would shoot it down. This incident would make tensions very high. It would give them a reason to destabilize President Lee's government and completely destroy his efforts to make peace with North Korea. But the drone had a second, even darker purpose. Its hidden cameras were watching President Lee's own movements. He was the real target. The news hit President Lee hard. In the last hours, North Korea had moved heavy artillery to the border. South Korean fighter jets flew overhead. The United States, with its many troops in the country, was on high alert. The entire Korean peninsula was on the edge of war, a conflict that technically never ended and could cost millions of lives. The clock was ticking fast. With great risk, President Lee used a secret back channel. He sent undeniable evidence to North Korea.
He showed them that a powerful group inside his own military had created the drone crisis. He explained their plot to sabotage his presidency. This proof was dangerous for South Korea's image, but it was the only way to avoid a full-scale war. Faced with this truth, North Korea pulled back its forces and stopped its threats. The immediate danger of war was gone. The public felt relief. They thought the crisis was over, the threat from North Korea averted. But for President Lee, the real battle had just begun. His fight was no longer with an enemy across the border. It was with powerful enemies hidden within the very halls of his own government in Seoul. These men wanted to control the nation, and they would stop at nothing. President Lee now faced a silent, unseen war for the future of his country. What happens when the greatest threat to a nation's security comes not from its declared enemies, but from those within its own government?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world.